This conference will now be recorded.
And you want to read the declaration?
Sure. Due to the nature of the declaration of a state of emergency due to novel coronavirus COVID-19, pursuant to Code Section 2.2-3708.2, this meeting is to be held by electronic communications via the web platform GoToMeeting. The catastrophic nature of this declared emergency makes it impractical and unsafe to assemble a quorum in a single location, and the purpose of this meeting is to discuss or transact the business statutorily required or necessary to continue operations of the public body.
Okay. So the caller, Ethelene, you actually now come up as Ethelene, so that's great. Thanks. All right, I'm going to call this meeting to order. It is now past 6 o'clock. Recording has begun. We have properly read the emergency notification. So I will, is there any discussion on the agenda before we call for approval? Do we need to make a change, an addition, or a subtraction? Rupert Farley is caller number 2, it looks like.
Excuse
Okay,
me, Mr. Chair, do you want
yes.
me to roll call?
Oh, shoot, I'm sorry.
That's
Go
all
ahead,
right. Yes. Good evening, members of CTAC. This is Leah Vigil. Mr. Olis, would you please mute your mic, and then all the members of CTAC, make sure to unmute your mics and be ready to respond. I will be going by jurisdiction, and hopefully we have someone from every jurisdiction. Beginning with the city of Fredericksburg, our chair who has called the meeting to order and is present, David McLaughlin. We have you listed. Is Mr. Joshua Brock present?
I am present, yes.
Thank you. Mr. John Castellarin?
Present.
Mr. Matthew Rowe?
Present.
Thank you. For Spotsylvania County, Vice Chair Al Durante? Mr. Neil Holleran?
Neil's here.
Great, thank you. Mr. Stan Huey? Mr. Josh Templeton? Mr. Anton Stubbs?
Here.
Thank you. For Caroline County, Mr. Ken Pogue? Mr. Michael Hoyt? Mr. Justin Chenault? For Stafford County, Mr. Melvin Allen Sr. Mr. David Swan? Miss Ethelene Crenshaw? I do know that you are present, so I have you marked present. Mr. Glenn Goldsmith? Mr. Wade Sudreth?
Here.
Thank you. For King George County, Dr. Robert Gates. And at-large members, Mr. Larry Gross. I see you listed and you are marked present. Mr. Rupert Farley.
Here.
Thank you. Mr. Dustin Savage.
Here.
Thank you. Roll call is now complete. You may all put your mics back on mute unless recognized by the chair to speak.
Leo, we also do have Glenn Goldsmith. I see his name on there. He might be having problems with his mic.
Thank you. I will note that.
I am present. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so as I started to do, is there any changes to the agenda for today? Okay, I wouldn't expect any. Is there anybody who does not approve of the agenda? Okay, hearing none and hearing if no one abstains, we will assume that everyone else approves of the agenda as posted. I'm sorry. I guess I got a little ahead of myself. I need a motion to approve the agenda. Sorry.
So move. This is Rupert.
Thank you, Rupert. Second?
Second is Al.
Thanks, Al. Al's on. Oh, Al Durante's joined us. Okay, good. All right. So we had no objection to the agenda as written. Is there any discussion? Okay. Some mics are open. Is anybody opposed to the agenda? Okay, the agenda is approved as written. Now we'll move to the approval of the CTAC meeting minutes. I hope everybody's had a chance to read those, to look at them, or as I did, to review our meeting. That was a little painful, looking at yourself on camera. Anyway, are there any changes that need to be made to the agenda? No, excuse me, to the minutes. I'm sorry, the minutes from the last meeting. Are there any changes that need to be made to the minutes? Okay, do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
This is Neil, so moved.
Thank you. A second?
This is Matt.
Thank you. So no one has made a motion to make any changes to the minutes. Is anybody opposed to the minutes as written? Is anyone opposed to the minutes as written? Is there anyone who did not attend the meeting and would like to abstain?
Dustin Savage would abstain.
Thanks, Dustin. Anybody else? Okay. Hearing no objection to the meeting minutes as posted. The meeting approved. Okay, Stacy. It was two meetings.
Yeah, so with both of the last policy committee meetings, they've had difficulty establishing a quorum, and that has made it very difficult to have any type of productive meeting. The meeting on October 19th, the meeting started and it was determined that there wasn't a quorum present because the city of Fredericksburg didn't have a member representative. However, there was discussion that because of the nature of the virtual meeting, it was impossible to identify who actually was in attendance. So they proceeded with discussing business, working under the assumption that there may be a quorum present. However, a few days later, the chair sent an email around saying she was acknowledging that there was in fact no quorum present. So any of the business they discussed would have to be discussed at another meeting. They did on the 19th make one action. They agreed to have a letter sent to the Virginia Secretary of Transportation, Secretary Valentine, as well as Fredericksburg City Council and the Commissioner of VDOT, just to convey their displeasure with the issues of establishing a quorum. On the October 26th meeting, the meeting started with a quorum. Then they voted to approve the hiring of the new FAMPO administrator and the transportation director. However, after that occurred, the city of Fredericksburg members left the meeting and we no longer had a quorum, and so they couldn't discuss any business, and the meeting ended without further action taken.
Okay, I will state that there has been some public or some letters and such from the mayor of Fredericksburg to Dr. Millsaps So there's been some discussion going on. So at least they're communicating. I don't know if it's led to any change in any policy or procedures or actually actions in this case. But anyway, they're going to about the meetings. So I hope that'll be helpful for us.
David,
Go ahead.
there was also an article, I think it was in this Sunday's paper, about some of the difficulties on the policy committee. So maybe hopefully that'll wake up some of the citizens to demand more of their representatives. It may be time for both citizens and maybe some people on this committee to talk to their local board of supervisors and maybe request some changes at the policy committee level. I know I'd certainly be willing to.
Any other comments on that?
If I may ask a question about it, is there a particular reason given why they won't stay or they can't stay to reach a quorum for that? Is it like a point of policy, or they just can't agree?
If your question is why they couldn't have the quorum, is because all the major jurisdictions were not represented, therefore they cannot have a quorum. So when there was not one member at all from Fredericksburg, then they could not have a quorum. But there was differences about how some major issues are being addressed and handled. The last minute changes to priority lists that hadn't been really vetted and coordinated in prior. And so anyway, I think though the fact that there's been this discussion ongoing, I'm sure there's a lot of behind the scenes discussion as well. Hopefully things will smooth out and get some resolution. I don't know that. We'll have another PC meeting just on Monday coming. So might be worth tuning into that one.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, Dave, this is Neil Holleran from Spotsy. Hey, Stacy, I wanted to ask real quick, is it possible that in the lack of a quorum that the policy committee or any committee for that matter, because I think we have to have a quorum too, right? For us to like meet and have any official actions, not that we have that many every meeting. Is that right? That we have to have a quorum too?
Yeah, we have to have a quorum too. But it's
right. So is it in the lack of a quorum? In the lack of a quorum, is it possible for that committee or any committee to basically put, things on the table and have minutes recorded that said, "Hey, here's how we recorded," or can they just not vote at all? I mean, what do the bylaws say? Do you have any insight into that at all? Because that's the thing I'm missing from all the articles. Over.
Yeah, with a quorum, they can discuss and take action. Without a quorum, they're allowed to discuss issues, but they cannot take any action.
Right, but then they can be recorded and of whatever the action was, so that when the next meeting comes and they have a quorum, they're like, "Hey, look, we decided this last time. You guys got to vote so we can figure it out." So they can move the agenda along, so it's not like a complete rehash every time, which you could argue from one side or the other. It's like a stalling tactic for things to change or whatever. But I guess my question is it possible to record those minutes, have those minutes reviewed like we review our minutes from the previous one? Everybody agrees to that in a quorum, and then they're like, "Okay, so from the previous agenda, the new agenda is this. You guys, because you weren't here, have to vote on this thing so we can figure out the decision." Is that something that's possible, or is it just like a complete rehash of the previous meeting? So basically, nothing gets done previously because people walked out or whatever reason there wasn't a quorum, and then they have to redo everything and things stall.
That we have a record of minutes, and you can find that on the policy webpage. And we did record it just as we do CTAC. So nothing was changed there with regards to having a record with the recordings and then the written minutes. It would be up to the policy members to decide what their agenda might be in the next coming months, and if they want to pick it back up from where they left off for the last meeting minutes. So it would be up to them.
Right, so it comes down to the chair leaderships to decide that's how they're going to do it, and then for everybody else to basically agree to do it that way. But essentially, with the leadership, you could do it that way, given the fact that you've recorded stuff. And okay.
Wouldn't it be, these committees don't just meet to vote, they meet to discuss. And so wouldn't it, not having that discussion, be unfair to those people who were not present at the last meeting, whether by their choice or not. And, you know, you can talk about whether that choice was childish or the other people were childish or who's being childish in this case, but there, I think, is certainly evidence that there are some childish members on that committee.
And whether they're childish or not doesn't matter to me, Al. It matters that it was recorded beforehand. Like us on this committee, we're supposed to have reviewed. We're supposed to have reviewed those. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I mean, it matters to get the work done, though. That's what it's about. And I mean,
well, no, but I mean, right. If the work gets done, though, if the work's recorded and you're supposed to review the minutes before coming to the committee, like we're supposed to, and approve those because we approve them at the beginning of every meeting. If you agree to that, then that's the case, and you've done your job, and you know whatever your thing is. So I'm just thinking that as long as progress can be made even without a quorum, if you're recording minutes and decisions, and then they get reviewed again, and everybody agrees to that, then I mean at least some progress isn't lost. It's not a complete rehash. Over.
I don't want to beat a dead horse here, and it may not be my place to really say this, but I think somebody needs to say it. And the reason that committee is where it's at now is because of lack of discussion and people working behind the scenes without, I mean, that's sort of what brought us here. So I don't think forcing somebody to vote without participating in the discussion is really going to be helpful. I mean, I do think that actually some personnel membership might be more helpful than that. So that's my personal opinion. And every time I've attended a PC meeting, I've gone away extremely, and I've voiced my my frustration. I've gone away extremely frustrated.
Yeah, Dave, thanks for the forum. I got my question answered. Al, copy that. We can take it offline some other way.
But for any action would have to be on the agenda. The agenda would have to be approved by a quorum. The action item would have to, there would be a motion and a second, and a quorum would have to be present, and then they would discuss it, and then they would vote it. You can't just say, hey, we talked about this last meeting, let's just move on because we have a quorum. It would have to be voted on again.
No, I agree, but like the fact is that the previous minutes could be available for what the previous vote was. Granted, there would have to be a revote, and those votes from the previous one could change even if they were present in the first one. But yeah, you would at least have the agenda move it along. Over.
Correct. It might speed things up. You're right. Absolutely. Okay, we'll open this up now for initial public comment. Are there any members of the public who are online who would like to make an input? And is there any, and if we don't hear any of those, and Stacy, did you have any that were presented to us electronically or writing?
No, we did not receive any requests to speak or any written comments.
Okay, is there anyone from the public who is dialed into this and would like to speak at this time? If there is anyone from the public who's just observing the meeting and does not want to speak, you can see that we have a survey here that you can give us feedback, the members of this committee, so that we do our job better. You'll see the information on the screen right now. Okay, I'll close, hearing none, I'll close the public comment. And now we have the privilege of hearing and being introduced to our new administrative director.
Yeah, I'll give Ian a quick introduction, then turn it over to him for his thoughts. Mr. Ian Ollis started with us last week. He is the new Director of Transportation, as well as the FAMPO Administrator. As the FAMPO Administrator, he's going to be leading FAMPO staff. He also is going to be facilitating regional cooperation with all the FAMPO committee members. And as the Director of Transportation, he will be working with rural transportation planning as well. Ian, I'll allow you to give yourself an introduction and say anything to the committee that you'd like. Oh, you're on mute, Ian.
There we go. Is that better? Thank you for that introduction and the warm welcome. I'm really excited about this new opportunity. I arrived in the job from the 2nd of November, and I'm really keen to get cracking. We've got lots of work to do. I'm very excited about the possibilities in the area in terms of transportation and transportation planning that we're going to be doing. And I hope to bring some new enthusiasm to both the policy committee, the staff at the regional office, and on the various committees like the one that I'm on tonight. I'm glad to meet all of you, although it's unusual e-meeting that we're having tonight. I hope in future we beat this COVID outbreak and we can have some meetings in person, and I get to meet you a little more personally in time as we're able to do that. So thanks for inviting me to the committee. I'm aware of some of the matters you've been discussing just now. I've met with the chairperson of the policy committee, and I'm trying to just help her with planning the next couple of meetings to try and get the best that we can out of the situation that we're in. So I make no comment on the various role players. I'm still new to the environment, but I have some political experience. I've worked 13 or 14 years in politics in South Africa, and was involved in transportation planning and policy work in Boston, Massachusetts for the last while. So I'm hoping that we can resolve some of these difficulties. I'm sure they're not insurmountable. We just need to get to the heart of the issue and find some solutions that work for everybody. We need to bring everybody back to the table, and I'm sure we'll be able to do that soon. So my contact details are all available to you. Please feel free to drop me a line and to say hi whenever we're able to do that. Thanks for the welcome again, and looking forward to working with all of you.
Thank you, sir. Now,
Welcome.
welcome. That's right. And based on the discussion, the CTAC has, as long as I've been involved with, and several members have been involved with it a lot longer, have very, very collegial. We welcome everybody's inputs. We listen to each other. We reach out to new people. We have a lot of turnover in a body of this size, and we try to get them up to speed and involved with what's going on. And we work incredibly well with the staff. The staff is great, so we're on a great setting and on a great footing. So thank you for joining us tonight.
Great. I look forward to the future.
Okay, Adam, CMAC and STBG methodology update, please.
Oh, wait,
Hey,
Mr. Chair,
don't
we
forget
skipped
7B.
over Alex.
Oh, I'm sorry. Please, yes, I skipped there. I saw speaker. Yes, we've got Alex from Transportation Advisory Committee here. Last week we had Eric from the city. I'll tell you what, I listened. I was not available yesterday to listen to the technical advisory committee, but I'm telling you, the work they do and the detailed work they do and the number of updates, they had an hour's worth of updates on a bunch of several programs, large programs within the state. They really work hard. They're the go-to for the answers. They're the ones who feed the policy committee with here's our recommendations on funding and other initiatives. And it's impressive to watch those, watch the Transportation Advisory Committee if you get the chance to do that. It's on the Monday, usually preceding our meeting. And it is recorded, so you can watch it. But anyway, so it's great to have the present chair of that committee here with us tonight. And I saw his briefing. It's going to be a very informative briefing. Welcome, Alex.
Yes, thank you. And good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the CTAC committee. My name is Alex Oziak. I'm the Transportation Program Manager for Stafford County, and just wanted to give you this evening kind of actually what turns out to be kind of a thorough overview of our transportation program here at Stafford County. If you go to next slide, please. So this is just kind of a brief rundown of some of the things we're going to be going over tonight as presentation. Next. All right, now as I can imagine, most of you are probably familiar with Stafford County, and as you're aware, we're probably the third fastest growing county right here in the Commonwealth, and this population growth is obviously causing a strain on our transportation network. Next. Here we've got kind of a brief overview of our organizational structure. The Transportation Division is part of the Capital Engineering and Construction Group, which is part of the larger Public Works umbrella. We've got a three-man office here. Myself, the Transportation Program Manager. We've got Brandon Brown, who's our Transportation Planner, and Tom O'Connor, who's our Transportation Project Manager. Next. All right, here, as you can see, for a three-man office, we've got a lot of responsibilities from managing our roadway, trail, and sidewalk projects to traffic calming, street signs. I mean, even overseeing completion of roadways for defaulted developers. And again, continuing to work with, Fred, FAMPO, VDOT, and other regional organizations to help support our transportation program. Next. We'll kind of get into a couple slides here regarding transportation planning here in Stafford. Here you see our comprehensive plan. It kind of serves as our general guide for future development here in Stafford County, especially with transportation. We've got a whole section dedicated to that. We're actually currently in the process of updating this plan for 2021. And we've got some links here where you can get some more information on our webpage if you'd like. Next. This slide here, kind of a brief overview of our bicycle and pedestrian facilities plan, which was completed last year. This kind of identifies localities throughout the county here for bicycle and pedestrian facilities in an effort to kind of meet growing demand and provide a valuable and safe alternative to motorized transportation. Next. All right, for our comprehensive road study, back in 2018, we completed a study of kind of existing roadways, looking really at kind of safety and crash data and congestion, and trying to start a process to prioritize roadways for improvements throughout the county. This study was actually used to help identify road improvement projects for our FY22 CIP and our 2019 bond referendum. And then we've got some links here as well to more information. Okay, next. And in connection kind of with the comprehensive road study, we've also been kind of working with the VDOT to kind of review historic crash data throughout the county and work to kind of identify, kind of like a top 10 list of roadway segments with the highest roadway departure crash injuries and crash data. Kind of looking at to see where we can, target high crash areas for targeted improvements to really increase the safety of our secondary roadways. Next. Next we'll kind of talk about some completed roadway projects. Next slide. Next. All right, here we go. Starting with the Juggins Road. This was a roadway we just recently realigned and completed roadway improvement projects. What we did is ended up paving the paving a gravel roadway, realigning it to meet current standards. And this was kind of done in conjunction with the relocated Moncure Elementary School. And this was totally done for a cost about $1.5 million back in June 2019. Next. This is kind of a screenshot of the Poplar Mountain View intersection project, which was actually just west of that intersection right there at the intersection with Cedar Hill Lane. This is really on a sharp curve here to kind of reduce roadway departure crashes. And this was completed back in September for a cost of about $1.6 million. Next. Brook Road was another one we just recently completed last fall. This was a realignment of about 1.8 miles of Brook Road located south of Eskimo Hill Road. And this was both a lane widening and shoulder widening and realignment to kind of improve the safety. And total cost of that project about $8.7 million. Here's another one. Stafford also partnered with VDOT on the Courthouse Roadway Widening Project, which was part of the recently completed interchange project. This was about a $36 million project that actually Stafford helped pay for almost about half of using revenue sharing funding. Next. Also recently completed was one of our sidewalk and trail projects, the Belmont Ferry Farm Phase 4 project. This one pretty much connected with John Lee Pratt Park, where our existing trail terminated, and continued it all the way to Chatham Bridge. Kind of terminated there, kind of waiting on the construction of that bridge to complete, and then we're going to be looking to institute Phase 6 of the program, which we'll talk about later on. Next. Okay, in addition to like our roadway improvement projects, we've also been working with VDOT on some like wedge widening projects on our secondary roadways to kind of help improve that, to provide additional travel lane width and some additional shoulder width. So what happens is when VDOT kind of identifies these roadways as part of their secondary maintenance paving program, we work with them and contribute additional funding to help pay for additional widening on the roadway. And then they do one overlay of the entire new roadway. So you've got a nice fresh striping, nice travel lanes, and a little additional shoulder to help prevent those roadway departure incidents. Next. All right, Stefanica Road. So we've also been working with VDOT here recently on some tree trimming projects. In addition to trimming some trees along the right-of-way, we've also been working with private landowners along the road to secure additional right of entries, so VDOT can go in there with their contract equipment and remove trees on private land that are still, really close to the side of the roadway, to help kind of open that up a little bit and provide some additional safety to our secondary roadways. Next. All right, next we're going to move on to some projects that are currently under development. First up is the Berea Church Road project. This is where realigning Berea Church between US 17 and Trustlow Road to provide wider travel lanes, 6-foot paved shoulders, and meet current geometry VDOT standards. We're currently in the right-of-way acquisition phase and anticipate advertising for construction in April 2021. Current cost estimate for this one is about $7.5 million. US 1 and Courthouse Road project seeks to improve the US 1 and Courthouse Road intersection, as well as the US 1 Bells Hill Hope Road intersection, which is just north of the Courthouse Road intersection. What we're going to be doing here is installing dedicated left turn lanes at those intersections, so we can get rid of the split signal phase timing and run concurrent phases. So northbound and southbound traffic can run at the same time, and same with eastbound, southbound, eastbound, westbound traffic, which should help further reduce congestion there. Right now, sorry, okay, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, next one, we can do next. This is our US 1 Telegraph Road project, realigning the intersection right there with US 1 and Telegraph Road, as well as doing some access changes there at Woodstock Lane on Route 1. Right there at Woodstock Lane, we're going to be putting in what's kind of referred to as a slotted left there. So you'll have a raised median for traffic heading southbound. We'll be able to turn left onto Woodstock Lane, and traffic heading north will be able to turn right. But folks coming out of Woodstock will only be able to make a right turn onto a US 1 heading north, and would have to make a U-turn at the next intersection, or go down to Telegraph Road. We'll have a signal, permanent signal there, and we'll have full access to head northbound or southbound under protected signal. And this one is also looking to start the right-of-way phase on this one next month, and then minor property impacts to about 6 different parcels, and then hope to advertise this one for construction in around December 2021. Next. All right, moving on to some bike and ped projects. We have phase 6 of the Belmont Ferry Farm Trail project. This one is currently in design phase and looks to extend that phase 4 project to bring the trail all the way down to Cool Springs Road. We're hoping to provide some preliminary plans for public comment next year, and the current cost for this trail segment is about $2.7 million. Next, all right, go Flatford Road. This is a sidewalk here. We're kind of filling in a missing link, the sidewalk network between Parkway Boulevard there to the north and Winding Creek Road down there to the south. Again, we're getting ready to start right-of-way acquisitions next month. We've got minor impacts to about 6 parcels, And we're actually kind of moving a little bit ahead of schedule, so we're hoping to beat that November 21 advertisement date. And current cost estimate for this one is about $850,000. All right, next we'll kind of go over how we're going to pay for all these projects here. Here's kind of a screenshot of our FY21 through 30 actually CIP showing you proposed projects and expenditures. Over the 10-year period, we're looking here about for $180 million in transportation spending. Unfortunately, I kind of failed to include the corresponding revenue chart, which showing kind of the various funding streams, such as the fuels tax revenue, VDOT revenue and smart scale, federal CMAQ, RSTP, and transportation alternatives funding, as well as developer proffers and impact fees we collect. But that information is available on the Stafford County website. Currently, we're in the process of developing our FY22 through 31 transportation CIP, and we're looking at a significant increase in transportation investment to the tune of about $250 million now over the next 10-year period. However, I will caveat that by saying a good portion of that $250 million, program there kind of is dependent on obtaining additional, state and federal funding from VDOT. Next. All right, that kind of is a perfect segue here leading to Smart Scale. The application period closed back in August, and we've been working with VDOT to kind of fine tune our applications and get those ready for the scoring effort here. Altogether, we submitted about 8 total project applications, 3 of which were submitted by GWRC, and 1 was submitted by FAMPO on our behalf. These 8 projects have a total cost of approximately $187 million, and we're seeking about $134 million in Smart Scale funding. And, of course, we recognize that's quite a large ask, and we're probably not likely to receive the full request. So our program is probably likely to undergo some tweaking once those results are known, hopefully the spring of next year. Next. All right, as you may be aware, our 2019 transportation bond referendum was approved by almost 3 out of 4 voters. That approved the county to borrow up to $50 million to fund transportation improvements throughout the county. And you can find some more information with that link below. And that's part of what we're using to fund and leverage that funds to help support our transportation program. Next. Revenue sharing. We actually recently received some good news from VDOT regarding possible revenue sharing awards. We applied for the full $10 million in revenue sharing for the FY21-22 period. And recently heard from VDOT that we're looking to receive the full request for the US 1 and Courthouse Road project, and probably about 75% for the Shelton Shop and Leland Road request. And that's mainly due to reduced funding throughout the state due to reduced fuels tax and various financial impacts from those COVID-19 impacts. They also have said, that those monies for Shelton Shop and Leland will be delayed. They're looking to push that money out towards the FY25-26 period. So we're also having kind of adjust our bond funding to front load the project there with county money and look for that revenue sharing reimbursement, later on. Next. All right, let's see. We also received some good news on the transportation alternative project applications. We got awarded our full request for the Stafford Borough Boulevard sidewalk project, which will connect the park and ride lot existing there on Stafford Borough Boulevard up to residential neighborhoods up there to the north. And then we also received an additional $594,000 for phase 6 of the Belmont Ferry Farm Trail project. Next. As part of our transportation funding, we've also established a transportation impact fee program here at the county, where we charge a fee for residential developers to help pay for future improvements to roadways due to their impacts from additional traffic. Our current fee is about $3,000 per residence, and that's only applied to residential development, not commercial developments. Next. All right, looking to the future, here's kind of a summary of our upcoming transportation projects. Majority of these here, like Shelton Shop, Lay Hill, Garrisonville, you've probably seen these before because these are our smart scale projects. You might have seen these in previous presentations. I'm not going to go over each one here in detail. You've got the information there. If you have any other further questions, feel free to reach out to me. I can help you with any questions there. Next. All right, and then some additional efforts we're working on are listed here. Particular note here is our new online GIS map we've created here for all of our capital improvement projects throughout the county, including transportation, utilities, and public construction. Using the link here will take you to a GIS map of the county showing the location of each project, along with the project description, some funding information, and we're going to be providing, at least quarterly updates on all these projects. We're also working on advertising an RFP for the development of a Stafford County Transportation Master Plan. And this is going to be aiming to kind of unify our various planning objectives, including, economic development and congestion mitigation and safety and bike and ped facilities, and merging all this into, one single document that can kind of help guide policy decisions and capital improvement project prioritizations, into the next decade and beyond. As part of that, we're also looking to create, a travel demand model here for the county to help kind of incorporate current and future travel and transportation methods and seeing how to forecast those. I think as mentioned earlier, we're also doing an update to our comprehensive plan. We're also looking to issue an RFP to update our transportation impact fee program and kind of look for new updates and see if those fees need to be increased there. And then finally, we're looking to enhance our partnership with various mass transit providers such as, Fred, VRE, OmniRide, and then can increase, multimodal opportunities here in the county and beyond. All right, so that kind of wraps it up for this overview of our transportation program. I'll probably take up maybe a little more time than you expected, but if there's any questions that I can answer, feel free.
This is Rupert. Thank you very much. The impact fee program you just mentioned, is it accumulating any money? Do you know how much maybe you have in the bank as a result of that?
Yes, I do not have those figures in front of me right now, but I could get that information to you if you'd like. But yes, we do collect quite a bit and kind of forecast that, based on development and occupancy units, and kind of hold a little bit of cash reserve just based on how those actually get deposited with the county.
Well, I guess the gist of what I was trying to get at was, is it working? Is it working as expected?
Yes, it has been working, and like I said, we're actually looking now to kind of do an update that to make sure, hey, are our fees, are those adequate, or do we need to be looking to charge more, and do we need to be looking at reprioritization of roads as far as what the impacts are and levels of service.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Hey, Alex, this is Neil Holleran from Spotsy County. Who's your equivalent down here in the county, which I should probably already know being from there, but I just wonder how much you collaborate with them and the Fredericksburg guys, and is there a similar role for them like you have in Stafford down here? Over.
So Paul Agnello would probably be the best comparative for my position down there in Stafford, in Spotsylvania County. And I know he's relatively kind of new to that position coming from FAMPO. But yeah, we work with him quite regularly, both here at FAMPO and on other, regional projects.
Thanks.
And Eric, who briefed us last month from the city, and all three of those are the primary. They're very important members of the technical advisory committee, and that's where they do their coordination and working from a regional perspective.
But Paul's not the Spotsy guy. He's like Richmond based, right? He's like a regional guy. Is that right, Dave?
No, when Paul left the position as the FAMPO.
FAMPO, right? Yeah.
He went to the county, and he's
Spotsy County. Okay, yeah, I guess I missed that. Oh, I mean, I knew he moved, and I just didn't know it was only Spotsy. I thought he was like a regional guy. Thanks.
Any other questions or comments?
I have a question, Alex. Back to on that impact fee, is there possible consideration for applying that to commercial developments like the one that's being built near the airport?
I think that's something we're probably going to be under consideration for this review coming up. Yes.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yeah, well, Alex, one of your first slides said there's only 3 people in your office, and I'm just astounded here that you're doing all this with just 3 people in your office. So, and you just take on more work. I mean, just yesterday's meeting at the transportation, you're taking on another prioritization methodology, which we're going to talk a little bit about later on, and updating that. So it just keeps getting better and better and busier. So thank you very much, Alex, for being with us. It was very enlightening, and like I said, seeing you and Eric working side by side and the others is really rewarding. So.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And certainly I'll provide Stacy with my contact information. So if anyone has any questions or wants to follow up, feel free to contact me.
Thank you. And Adam, do you have anything you'd like to add to that presentation?
No, nothing to add. I think Alex covered quite a bit, and he's great to work with from a regional perspective. So Alex, thanks again for your presentation.
Yep, great.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Now we will move to congestion mitigation and air quality, CMAC, and the STBG prioritization methodology, as I just forecast.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening, committee members. Do you have a quick kind of verbal update on what we're working on as far as the CMAC and STBG prioritization methodology update? We did, I believe, share back in September, I want to say, with the CTAC, the current methodology. It sort of breaks out how we score and rate projects based on a certain number of metrics, and they're compared against one another. And our policy committee identified back in February and March of 2020 the need to update it, primarily coming from Stafford County, where they wanted to identify how to measure and gauge a benefit to the transportation management area that's within Stafford County. So that's part of the area that generates some of those funds. And so the TAC was sort of tasked with developing a subcommittee that would then sort of get in the weeds as far as how this update might go and what types of metrics to tweak and that sort of thing. And I'll say that kind of since the development of that subcommittee in give or take early August, maybe late August, there's been quite a bit of this, our team included, that have just had a number of more pressing things that have sort of come to the top of the agenda. So we have not made as much progress, I'd say, at this point as we would have wanted to. One thing that I was tasked with by Alex and the other members of the subcommittee was to reach out to a couple other NPOs to talk about what they did the last time they updated their own methodologies as far as CMAC and STBG. And so I spoke with Hampton Roads. This is about a month ago now. And one thing that one of their principal planners recommended to us was, instead of focusing on kind of the short-term 6-year funds within CMAC and STBG and treating that as its own sort of separate isolated program, to have it be a subset of how we prioritize projects for the LRTP. So looking at long range plans and saying, if we have a project list that's in the LRTP, start there and start with the way that you prioritize projects for the long range plan, and then treat them as a subset where different applicants can sort of pick projects out, and then there's not a whole reinvention of the wheel to rescore them with a whole separate methodology. And so I presented that back to the subcommittee last month, and so we have a meeting scheduled for November 20th with that subcommittee. So this is made up of planners from our 3 localities, as well as VDOT and VRPT, GWI Connect, and VRE. And the goal of that meeting is to essentially sort of get together and put on paper the specific tweaks that we want to make to the LRTP methodology, as well as the CMAC and RSTP methodology for the spring 21 cycle. So typically every February and March is when the out year, so what's going to be coming up, the FY27 funds get allocated based on scores at that time. And so instead of making a massive overhaul to this document, sort of keeping in line with what the best practices are in treating the LRTP as sort of the fulcrum, if you will, of how we prioritize projects. The idea at this point is to kind of tweak each of the different methodologies kind of as necessary without doing a massive overhaul. And so that is essentially kind of the update that I have to share with the committee tonight. And I'm happy to take any questions on that because there's a lot of moving pieces that sort of go into that puzzle.
Any questions on that? Okay.
Adam, where's the methodology at? Sorry, this is Neil.
Hey, Neil. We had that in our CTAC packet a couple months ago. We can make sure that we send that out via email after this meeting tonight. But I want to say in the September CTAC meeting packet, we had that listed there in the packet.
Okay, thanks.
There were some really good questions about that when we had. I remember that discussion. Some guys have been around, like Larry and probably Neil. I think you had a lot of good input, and Rupert, you had some good comments on that. So.
I'm just going to take a look real quick before I mislead Neil on that real quick.
I'm racing you.
Yep, there we go. Right there. September, the first agenda item, or first discussion item, I should say.
Yeah, okay, I'll find it in a minute. I'm on my phone.
Okay, let's see. Adam, you still have the floor for the LRTP update.
I guess I do. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick update here. I didn't quite have time to put together a new slide deck for this meeting. So this is what our consultant Cambridge was going to present at our TAC meeting yesterday. So this is basically just a quick snapshot of the work that they're going to be doing as far as the modeling activities that go into the 2050 LRTP. Part of why we had Cambridge sort of signed up to do that presentation is I am not the foremost modeling expert in our region, and we don't quite have any staff expertise with that. So that's why we've leaned on our consultant Cambridge for that effort. So any specific questions as far as the timeline for modeling or the details that go into that, I'm happy to take and collect those questions and make sure we get answers. But again, we are not the foremost experts ourselves on travel demand modeling for long range planning. But did want to share kind of a couple things that we've been working on as a staff over the last month. The primary thing that we've been working on, and then Stacy will talk about some of the public involvement efforts here in just a moment, but we have been working on some updates to some of the maps in the current plan, as well as some of the narrative content in the chapters that spell out the existing conditions of the transportation system in our region. We're also starting to look into how we want to update and tweak our scenario planning efforts for the 2050 plan. We are still scheduled at this point. I know it seems like it's a long ways off, but December 2021 is when we're looking for approval. And so we laid out a pretty detailed schedule to our 2050 LRTP working group. And there's a couple CTAC members that are on that. And that group will meet again in 10 days on the 20th as well. But do have a...
This is Rupert. What is CS?
That is Cambridge Systematics. That is the name of our consultant. Sorry, that's not on here, Rupert.
Thanks.
So I think I'm going to go ahead and pause there. And Mr. Chair, if it's okay, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Stacy to talk about some of the public involvement efforts for the 2050 LRTP.
Okay, and I will interject one thing. Correct me if I'm wrong, Adam, but I mean, the consultant, Cambridge, is only doing a small piece, an important piece, but a small piece of the LRTP. We haven't just dumped this thing in their lap and said, hey, give us a plan. This is being done by FAMPO and the staff there. Is that a fair assessment?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And I'm not sure what the percentage breakdown would be. Part of what they're doing is very specialized and requires quite a bit of software knowledge, expertise, right, that we just don't have. But so they're focused primarily on the modeling. So looking at the road network now, and then if we were to take the constrained project list that we develop over the next few months and implement that over this 30-year period, sort of what that would look like, how the level of service would improve, or in some cases potentially not improve. So getting into the weeds of some of that type of work that, again, we just don't quite have the capability in-house to do. But it is certainly being led by our staff and our team for sure.
Thanks, Adam. Stacey.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the public involvement options that we're starting now. We're in phase 1, as I'm calling it, of our public involvement efforts. So this is it says creating a new transportation plan on your screen. That's alluding to the 2050 long range transportation plan. And again, for anyone new or just needs a refresher, this is the long-term transportation plan that looks 30 years out into the future and says, hey, what are our needs? What kind of projects can we do in the next 30 years in order to meet those needs, and how are we going to fund those projects? So because this transportation system serves the people in this area, we need to make sure that we include them in the process as we develop this plan. In phase 1, we're asking for the public to help us develop the goals and objectives of the plan. And because that's pretty tall order for people who aren't transportation professionals, we've provided this webpage that you can see on your screen, and it gives a little brief introduction about what the long-range transportation plan is. We have a little video here that we call a chat with a transportation planner that one of our planners, Jordan, helped record to give a little bit more interactive information. And then, Adam, if you can scroll down a bit, there are some ways to get involved in the process, and then bringing your attention to the ones that say happening now. For example, we're looking for catchy taglines, a new title. We're also, we've got the survey. I'll talk more about that in a moment. We've got a survey people can use to weigh in and help us develop the goals and objectives. We also, under happening now, we're making the public aware that they can join the CTAC meetings, the policy meetings, the TAC meetings, just to tune in, to stay informed of where we are in the process, and that they can give public comment or submit written comments at our meetings. If you can now go back to the agenda, Adam, and let's talk about, oh, we don't have a survey link. I'm sorry. Click back on that. Yeah.
Do we have it on the website, Stacey?
Yeah, it's right there on the second happening now. Says click here to take the survey. Okay, and you should have received an email about this survey today. If not, check your spam folder. So the survey does take a good amount of time, about 5 to 10 minutes. But what it does is it walks the public through proposed transportation goals for the region. And we've developed these proposed goals from taking the former plan's goals. And then we also reached out to you all and TAC members and asked for input. I think we had about 15 people give substantial input, and rest assured, I went through every single comment and I really did my best to incorporate those into a revised goal and objectives questionnaire here. So hopefully when you take this survey yourself, you'll see a reflection of some of those comments and suggestions that you made. So the public can go through, read what the goal is, quickly check the objectives, which is how are we going to meet those goals that they would agree with. And then also they can propose how they think we should meet our goals. And then finally, later on down in the survey, they'll be able to propose some goals that perhaps we hadn't even thought about. This survey is going to be opened, we're saying right now, till the end of December. Depending on the level of participation we get, we might have to extend that into January. But we ask that you help share the news of this survey, take it yourself. We'd really like to get a high level of participation. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do our in-person library outreach for this survey. The library said that, you know, for the foreseeable future, that's just not an option. So we're just going to be doing a virtual outreach, and your help with that would be greatly appreciated. Let's see what else. Another form of virtual outreach for this survey is going to be a Facebook Live lunch and learn with the library. That's going to be later on in January. We're still trying to nail down a date. We're going to have FAMPO staff participate during a lunch hour talk where we'll talk more about what is the long range transportation plan, why the public should take the survey, how we're going to use the survey data to help us develop the goals for the region's transportation system. And Adam's just showing you there the rest of the webpage. Any questions? I see some questions in the chat.
Stacy, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
This is Larry Gross. I just want to compliment you. I think you're doing really good work here, and I think it's going to pay off, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I really do appreciate everyone taking the time to go through the draft survey and provide feedback. I could tell that you all who provided those comments spent a lot of time really thinking through what the goal should be in the next 30 years out for the region. And we really did our best to incorporate this. And I know Adam and Ian are on board with really taking the time to look at the results of this survey. So it's not going to be a waste of time for anyone who takes it. We really want to make sure that we have the public involvement in this process because, as you know, ultimately the transportation system needs to work for them. It's their system.
It's hard for the public to understand it, and the work that you're doing is going to help a lot of people understand it better.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? It's like we're back to Adam.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I think it's been some time now, I think about this time last year, since we talked about performance-based planning and programming. So just a quick primer for those who are relatively new to that term. In 2012, the sort of latest transportation bill sort of established a more data-driven approach to trying to ensure that what regions and states and then the country as a whole, when we put together these goals and objectives and these plans and meet all these checkbox requirements, sort of what's the end goal, what's the point, right? And so part of what they tried to establish is with a number of different metrics, having actual data to say, is this improving? So for instance, with thinking about safety. So are fatalities in certain regions going down or are they going up? And if they're going up, what are we doing about it? So that's essentially kind of the heart behind performance-based planning and programming, or PBPP. So there's 3 different things that we have some upcoming deadlines on. I'm going to go ahead and pull up this email from VDOT that we got back in September after our most recent quarterly coordination meeting with them. Basically, there's kind of 3 things. I'll just kind of quickly highlight each of those and then take any questions. But we have a deadline of March 15th, 2021 for the 4-year target for the percentage of deck area of bridges that are in good condition. So every 4 years, it's sort of a cycle where there's a certain percentage that needs to be in good condition. And if not, the state and MPOs need to do something about that, essentially. So what VDOT sort of sets the MPOs up to do for this one in particular is they provide a template letter that we sign off on, and we say that whatever the statewide target is, we will adopt that, or we will make up our own target as an MPO that's either more aggressive or if we can justify it, that's a little bit more relaxed. So I think what FAMPO has done historically pretty much every time is just adopt the statewide target. So that's what our intention is for this item. The second is the Public Transit Agency Safety Plan. If memory serves, I believe we briefed this committee on this item a couple months ago when we were first given notice by VDOT, but basically what this is DRPT has established a statewide transit safety plan that spells out what the performance measures are that all of the Tier 1 and Tier 2 transit agencies in the state are. And we have FRED, of course, in our region, which is a Tier 2 agency. And when I get to this in just a moment, I will sort of share what the language is and what the sort of metrics are that we'll be adding to our TIP, our Transportation Improvement Program. And then the final item that we have is for highway safety target setting. Again, it, like the bridge condition, it sort of operates on a cycle. In this case, it's annually. And so we have to provide a letter to the state from the policy committee saying that we will adopt the statewide target. So I will quickly kind of go through in a little bit more detail each of these items. So for the Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan, or PTAS as it's known, I'll kind of scroll here to the bottom and show you the language that we're intending to add to our TIP. So right now, this is just placeholder, but did want to share this with the group and see if there's any questions. But basically, since Fred, again, is a tier 2 group within the state, we would include this language as well as this table into our TIP. And then the numbers that would populate this table, so again, this is everything from fatalities to injuries to safety events. I know that, I want to say it was last month maybe, that Al had asked a question about sort of, where is this data? Well, here's sort of where the targets are for some of that data. So for Fred in particular, the state sort of spells out based on the data that they've crunched and analyzed what the sort of thresholds would be. So for safety events, for instance, we want to make sure that there's 8 or less per year, that type of thing. So again, this table spells that out in detail. And again, just wanted to provide a quick overview of that with the CTAC. The second item, the highway safety target setting, I think I included the template letter. Again, for those of you who were here this time last year, which is about when I was getting started with FAMPO, this was one of the first items as far as the annual highway safety target letter. So again, our intention is to have the chair of FAMPO sign off and agree to the statewide target. And then lastly, with a bridge condition, same idea, template letter that we'll sort of sign off on in January with our policy committee. So I know that that's a lot of information kind of at once related to performance-based planning and programming, but happy to take any questions before we move on.
Question on the highway and the bridge, did the suggested, or the state suggested targets, did they change from last year that we approved?
They did. The fatalities in particular, Dave, I'm not sure exactly what the number was, but it was a negative number last time around. And I know that that was a question that we had. So I think we actually at the time sent a letter to the state to ask about that. But right now it's positive, and they say that a positive value represents an increase. So I think that that's what the state's proposing here.
That doesn't make sense. Something else doesn't make sense was back on page 5 on the transit section. It looked like there was a mistake there.
Let's see.
There you go. Under system reliability, the last item on that chart, shouldn't that be greater than 80,000 miles? And greater than, what that other one is? Because it's very easy to achieve the goal of less than 80,000. 1 mile is less than 80,000.
Yeah, I'm trying to think through this, Rupert. It's a good question. Distance between major failures. Yeah, Rupert, let us send a. Sorry, go ahead.
That's got to be wrong.
Yeah, we'll send a note to DRPT and ask them if they can provide some details and some context for those 2 items in particular, because I see what you're saying there.
Good.
Hey, Adam.
Yes, sir.
Back on that same question, I was just looking at it. Some of the stuff that I've seen before, I thought they set them up in terms of passenger miles, not just gross miles. So I don't know. Are they?
Yeah, Larry.
When you say distance between failures, is it one person, or is it however many people are being carried, or what?
Yeah, that's a good question, Larry. And I think part of what we would need to ask about to get an answer to that question would be sort of what the definition of a major failure is. Is it related to a passenger event, like a fatality or injury, or is it related to something happening on the rail network, for instance? I think getting a definition to what a major failure is, versus minor, for instance, that's something that we would definitely need to get. So we can inquire with the RPT about that as well for you, Larry.
Yeah, I agree with what you just said.
Any others? I'm always impressed with the questions and the observation you guys come up with. It's great. Okay, Jordan's on at bat.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening, everyone. So I just wanted to provide a quick review of what we talked about last meeting with the equity analysis for the Transportation Improvement Program. So this is a 4-year fiscal subset of the LRTP, and it is required by 2 executive orders to maintain fair and equal treatment and meaningful involvement of minority populations and low-income populations, and no discrimination based on race, color, national origin, or income. And so the purpose of this is to analyze the benefits and burdens of our proposed transportation projects and plans in the region. And so we had 3 methods that we suggested last time. So I'm going to quickly review those and then show what the suggested method is for moving forward. So in method 1 from the Richmond TPO is a just regional average of the protected population. Then moving on to method 2 from VDOT Title VI manual is doubling the regional average. So anything over twice the regional average to define something that is meaningfully greater, to find the concentrations of these protected populations. And then moving on to method 3 from the Roanoke Valley TPO, they use the standard deviation to create a index and to define what the index uses standard deviation to find more concentrated clustered of these protected populations. And so feedback from the TAC and the CTAC members suggested option 3 was the most appropriate method to use. And option 3 can easily compare one target population to the other. It can evaluate target populations individually, but it also is comprehensive in the fact that it creates the equity index. And after the creation of this index over the region, you can look at the transportation proposed projects and then begin to analyze the benefits and burdens of those projects in relation to the index. So I can take any questions about that.
Jordan, this is Neil. You're the kind of the expert here. You just got out of college with all this stuff. Do you agree with that recommendation, the determination method 3? Over.
Yeah, I do believe that this is the most complex and comprehensive method that would be the best for our region to analyze all these different factors of these minority and protected populations.
Right, because it looks like the other 2 are kind of highlighting low income only. Is that what I'm reading in the slides? And then this third one kind of will give us like at least an equity of looking at any of them if we needed to. Over.
So the low income example is just one example of the populations. So in the table, you can see all the different types of populations that we would run this analysis for. But the index is specifically able to analyze more than one group at a time. So they can kind of be overlaid into one sum.
Okay, thanks. Got that.
You briefed this yesterday to the TAC. Didn't they agree with the third option or not?
Yep, that was from their suggestions from after the first presentation. They also then agreed yesterday.
So I guess to help your presentation to the PC, you'd probably like to know how we feel about this.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful.
So I think there's going to be 3 responses. Some of us going to say, I don't really know. I'm not, strongly one way or the other. There's going to be some people who say, yeah, no, option 1, 2, or 3 is the best way to go. And then option 1, 2, or 3 is terrible. So does anybody got any strong feelings on, or not even strong feelings, but some feelings about option 1, 2, or 3 and what they think? I know last week or last month, our consensus really was option 3, but we've got some different players today. So this is not a vote. It's just going to be kinds of some basic, hey, the CTAC tended to agree that option 3 looked like the best, with, I mean, real commitment of dollars or pennies. And nobody hates number 1 or loves number 1.
I'll jump in. I think I'm one of the ones from last time that thought that 3 was the better option because it gives a multiple ways of thinking that will really help drive decision making in a way that the other two just I don't see how they can in what option 3 is actually able to propose.
Yeah, I think maybe Dustin, you were too last time, was it? Am I right?
I was not present last meeting. This is the first time I've,
Okay.
But
Sorry.
I do agree that 3 seems to be the best given the data sets that are available and the outputs that we're looking for. 3 would appear to be the best one.
Okay. Well, it's just an input that if anybody has strong opinions and they want to send them to Jordan, she would welcome that. And I think we'll just say that based on what we heard, CTAC kind of agree with the TAC that option 3 seems to be preferred. So we can't really be very more definitive than that, unfortunately. Okay. Thanks, Jordan. I hope that helps.
Thanks.
And we got to listen to Adam again. Holy moly.
Just one more time, Mr. Chair, tonight, and soon enough it'll be Ian and not me, so I'm sure everybody's tired of me by this point. All right, a couple updates on the request that we made to our TAC, and then had mentioned, of course, at the CTAC last month as far as regional study ideas and proposals. So I wanted to share what we had received to date. So for those of you in Spotsylvania, that is the only locality from which we received any firm proposals. So what we talked about at the TAC meeting yesterday was kind of the merits of some of these, as well as some of the timeline. What VDOT indicated during the meeting yesterday was that for any STARS studies, that the application cycle would be sometime around next March or April. So we're not entirely sure whether that would set itself up for having a study that would then be completed and have recommendations in time for the round 5 smart scale applications. I know we just finished the application period for round 4, but it comes very quickly with how generally slow these cycles move. And then anything for a corridor preservation type study, those are competitive funding studies that have to be applied for by the VDOT district, which in our case is the Fredericksburg district, of course, to the central office. And so we didn't get into the weeds as far as the timing of that, but these were sort of what were put forward, again, by our TAC members. And then one thing that I wanted to share too, one thing that I don't think we've briefed the CTAC on is the statewide transportation plan, VTrans. I will make sure that we get a link out in case anybody's curious about this, but what VTrans has done at the direction of the Commonwealth Transportation Board over the last roughly kind of 1.5 to 2 years is develop a statewide set of transportation needs. And what they've done over the last couple of months is they've gotten direction to take those needs and then prioritize them based on a number of different sort of big data type metrics and measures and that type of thing. And what they've indicated is that for both VDOT and DRPT, that moving forward, instead of just somebody coming forward saying, hey, we'd like to study this intersection, that it would actually have to come from this prioritized set of needs that have been identified by the state. So if there's a tier 1 need, for example, that would be much more likely to receive funding for a new study than something that's a tier 4 need, for instance. And so they have published the draft set of prioritized needs for our region. And so again, I'll make sure that that we get a link out. They have a really cool interactive sort of web map tool very easy to sort of go through and analyze the different needs that the state has listed out. So just wanted to mention that as well, because I don't think that we've briefed the CTAC on that.
Thanks. Yeah, I saw that yesterday. It did look very interesting. So thank you. Well, appreciate that. And again, if we have any ideas, bring them forward. Stacy, bylaw update.
Okay, so this item we talked about at the last CTAC meeting. For those of you who were not there, you should have received an email after that meeting. It went out to everyone, people who were present at the meeting and who weren't. It gave you some resources to look at the Virginia Freedom of Information Act laws. The reason you receive those resources is because we use those to draft this proposed language for you to adopt into your bylaws. And what this language does is it allows you to participate remotely in meetings, as we are doing tonight, under normal conditions. So the reason we are meeting all virtually tonight is because we are under a state of emergency due to COVID. And there is legal language that was recently adopted last year that actually early this year, that allows us to meet all virtually. However, once that state of emergency is lifted, we are required by law to have a provision on virtual participation before a member can participate remotely in any meeting. So let's hope come January, that's going to be the next CTAC meeting. Let's hope come January, we're not in a state of emergency anymore. And if that's the case, we're going to need to adopt this tonight. You don't have to adopt it tonight if you still want to take another month or so to digest it and to discuss it. But we would recommend so that come January, if there's no longer a state of emergency, everyone would still have options that would allow them to participate remotely if that's their choice. And you can read through this. There are certain criteria that you must meet in order to participate remotely. These are not criteria that staff has just come up with. These are pulled directly from the Virginia Freedom of Information Act laws or the Virginia Freedom of Information Act Council recommended guidelines. And TAC yesterday did adopt the exact same language, except for the fact where it says if CTAC votes, it said, of course, if TAC votes.
This is Neil Holler. I'm moved to adopt.
Second.
Second.
Sorry, I got off on another page. Yes, thank you for jumping on that so quickly. The TAC did the same thing yesterday. It's quickly adopted it. So is there anyone who is opposed to adopting these changes to our bylaws? Okay. Is there anyone who wants to abstain from voting on these changes to our bylaws? Okay, and because we're changing our bylaws, I don't think we have to have a vote person by person. But I will like to have an ascension, a voice ascension. So if everyone will unmute, I'm going to ask for everybody to say aye here in a second.
Aye.
We got people are still unmuting. They're probably taking a nap. Okay. All in favor of adopting these changes to our bylaws, say aye.
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 And has anyone changed their mind that they are against adopting these bylaws? Okay, hearing none, the bylaws are adopted. Thank you for working on that, Stacey. Thank you for giving, when you gave this to us, it was very helpful, the background materials you presented to us. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we have another opportunity for public comment, right, Stacy?
Correct, yes.
So at this point, since if anyone is from the public has been listening to this meeting and they have been able to, it might have been something we discussed that triggered a thought in your mind and you want to make a comment on, welcome to that at this point. I don't see a lot of open phones ringing out to the public. Okay, so I assume there are none, so we'll close this final public comment period. And correspondence.
Okay, so we only have one item of correspondence. This is an official letter from Spotsylvania County stating that Neil Holleran has been reappointed as a CTAC member.
I remain unindicted.
We vote on this. Glad you're on, Neil.
We love it when our members are unindicted.
Okay, we'll do staff reports. Stacy or
Oh,
Adam?
skipped one. Correspondence, and then I can move right into staff reports if you'd like. Or no, we just did correspondence. You're right, Dave. You're right. Okay, staff reports now. Just 3 items. So the one item might be of interest. So Stafford County is holding a transportation meeting. It's their own thing. FAMPO staff is not going to that, but you might be interested in that. So it's called Stafford Transportation Priorities Working Group meeting. That's going to be on Friday at 9 a.m. and it looks like it's in person only. You can find more information on the Stafford County's website under their public meetings link. The second thing I have to report is that you might recall getting information, and we talked about it at the last meeting, that the George Washington Regional Commission, we've made a rural transportation plan for them, and they are going to vote to adopt that on Monday. Between now and Monday, and at Monday's meeting, the public will have an opportunity to submit comments on that plan and to address the George Washington Regional Commission Board before they adopt that plan on Monday. So that's Monday at 6 p.m. and you all are welcome to tune in. That's going to happen directly before the FAMPO Policy Committee meeting. So you're welcome to join that meeting and then just stay on the line. It's the same meeting room for the FAMPO Policy Committee meeting. You can, if you're interested in learning more about this, perhaps you missed our last meeting, we do have more information and a link where you can view the draft plan on our website. You can go to, from our homepage, it's the plans menu option at the top. And then under plans, you're going to look for the long range transportation plan option. And on that page, you'll see a link for the rural plan. And the last report, you may be interested in attending the virtual bike and pedestrian committee meeting. That's going to be on December 3rd at 6 p.m. That is another FAMPO committee, and they really outdo us with public involvement. I think they had like nine different public attendees at their last meeting. So folks really enjoy discussing regional bike and pedestrian issues, and you guys are welcome to tune into that as well. You can find information on how to join that on our homepage under Join a Virtual Meeting. And I know they are, Carrie Barber, one of our transportation planners, she's currently working to collect data on all the regional trail systems. So that might be a topic of discussion that interests you at that meeting. And that's all that we have.
Mr. Chair, actually, I wanted to, this is Leah Vigil. I was just going to make a point of clarification on the policy committee review and the discussion on bylaws and the quorum. I did just want to make note to the CTAC members that the bylaws are, there is a link for bylaws for each committee on each committee page. So you can go to the policy committee webpage and look at their policy bylaws, and They are different from committee to committee. So I did also want to just clarify that for CTAC, there is no quorum required. It is based on the majority of members present. So there is no defined quorum.
That's right. So it makes it a little more forgiving for us if you want to phone in from King George, for example. So. Okay, we've got member reports. Anybody from the city want to make a report? Okay. Anybody from Stafford?
No
Okay.
report.
All right. Anybody from Spotsy? All right. King George. What that bad meeting? Let's see. We got Caroline. At large.
I have less of a report, more of a question about seats, but it might be something to do afterwards. About the open seats on the counties.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just wondering, so we don't have a meeting next month, and I know my 2-year thing is up in February. At the time I applied, there were no seats for Stafford, and I know that, hey, there you go. There are 2 seats open in Stafford, which is where I live, and I don't know the process to transfer if I wanted to go from at-large to actually filling a seat for the county. I don't know what the process would be for that.
I can help you with that, Dustin. I'd be happy to help you with that. I'll send you an email tonight, and we can start talking through that way. Basically, I would hook you up with their administrative assistant for the Board of Supervisors, and she helps us coordinate and bring it before the board. So it's, you don't have to do too much. It's a pretty simple process.
No, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad you're not really leaving. That'd be great. Super.
No.
All right. Any last safe rounds, anybody? All right. Can I hear a motion to adjourn?
Move adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for attending the meeting. This meeting is now adjourned. I think it was a good meeting, and I think we showed Ian that we really do work well together and support each other. So thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks.
Welcome.
Good night.
Good night.
Not all.
you.